Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, we're going to the playoffs. How you doing?
That's what I was about to say. Now we can talk playoffs. Playoffs? Yes, playoffs.
Oh, yeah. Jim Mora, Mora of some kind. We are going to the playoffs, and by we, I mean the Packers, because we are we. Packers win 17-9 over the Bears in Week 18 in Lambeau Field to go to the playoffs. They will be playing the Cowboys on Sunday in Dallas. Mike McCarthy, tons of narratives for that game. We can't wait to talk about pregame for that, but we mostly can't wait to talk about this game because, Dad, this was an exciting game. The score doesn't make it seem like it, but it really was an exciting game, I promise, if you watched it. It was a little hair-raising, a little nail-biting there for the Packers for a little bit, but we're going to be talking all about it, performers of the game, what we liked from the offense, what we liked from the defense, what we didn't like from the offense, what we didn't like from the defense, what we didn't like from the special teams. But before we get into any of that, if you like what you hear today...
I like your very meaningful pause there.
If you like what you hear today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when we have when we have episodes out, stats that we find when we're researching for these episodes, articles that we find interesting by other Packers content creators, videos we find interesting by other content creators, pieces of Packers news like injury reports and movement, roster moves, etc., etc. One-stop shopping for everything Titletown. So come give us a follow there once again on Twitter at FatherSonPacker, and then subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We even put all our episodes out on YouTube as well. If you want to check us out there, if you subscribe to us there, it would really help our numbers. But yeah, subscribe, comment, rate, review. We'll respond. We try to respond to most comments we see. We're not always the best at checking our notifications, but we're doing better. In 2024, that is a resolution. But Dad, let's get to this game. 17-9. Let's just do kind of a throwback gut check. How did you feel during this game? Because I was tense.
I was a little tense, but I mostly felt pretty good. And based on my message was like, you didn't yell at the TV. You didn't yell so much during this game. It's like, because what I said to her was like, most of the plays were in the Packers' favor.
And also, this game was dummy quick. This game was like
it was super quick. It was like the Packers barely got a third possession in the first half.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the Chiefs game a little bit, where it's just like both these teams are just going to have the ball like 6 minutes of drive at this point, and like and it was only like 6-drive game each. It was kind of wild.
Like 6 minutes of constant running clock. It was like a soccer game.
Yeah, I mean that was the other thing, was there wasn't a penalty until like the third quarter called, and so the clock was just running and running and running.
Not that many incomplete passes. Lots of running plays.
Not that many incomplete passes for the Packers for sure. Oh, we're going to talk all about what a game from Jordan Love. We're going to talk all about that. Before we get into any more of the fun stuff, though, just a couple of notes on the injury updates for this game. Pre-game, Christian Watson was declared to be inactive in this game. That is, despite being questionable coming into the game, him saying he expected to play. Them saying that the lack of practice on Friday was, that was part of the plan. They were going to give him that day off. Dad, what do you think happened there where, he wasn't active? Do you think it was, he's not physically ready to play? Or do you think it was, hey, we know what we're getting out of, Malik Heath, Bo Melton, and these other players who are playing really well in his absence, and we know they're like physically 100% ready, and maybe a 90% Christian Watson, maybe we just want to wait and give him another week. What do you think happened there? Do you think maybe he had a flare-up in warm-ups?
I think he was just not quite ready. There'd be no reason to sit him out on the last game of the year.
Well,
if they thought he could go.
I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it just seems like, maybe all that thing about the plan being planned not to practice on Friday is just all smoke.
Yeah, just to throw the Bears off the scent maybe a little bit. Yeah. It certainly could be. But yeah, definitely a weird one for me, because I really expected him to play until they activated DeBose, who actually was interestingly also inactive in this game.
That's the thing that really surprised me, is that neither one of them played.
To me, that must have been for DeBose a scenario of like, we're not sure how Wicks / Reed are going to feel in warmups, and we're just going to have you here just in case, because we can't like do it last minute. We just need to have you here in case we need you.
They must have been worried that somebody else besides Watson was going to miss the game.
Yeah, but I thought that was interesting. And then in game, Zach Tom hurt his hand, had to get it wrapped, was kind of rotating in and out of the game. with Josh Nyman at right tackle. Not great, but he still played a good segment of the game and was coming in and out. It was a weird situation and something we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on this week because, that Dallas pass rush along the edge is formidable with Micah Parsons. But yeah, so hopefully Zach Tom's okay. And then the other injury
I think
in-game,
he ended up playing like 80% of the snaps.
Okay, well that's good at least. That's a good portion because he ended up with that hand injury pretty early on in the game. I think it was like the first or second drive.
He played 48 of the 60 snaps.
Okay. So hopefully, give it a week and he's back to maybe 100%. But yeah, Romeo Doubs also injured in this game, chest injury, probably on that pass into the end zone. That was his only target on the day. Went to the hospital after coughing up blood, as reported by John Kuhn on the sideline. So that's kind of scary.
That can't be good.
Yeah, can't imagine that's good at all. But was back for the post-game celebration and is now day-to-day, so it seems like that hospital check-in was, A-okay, just precautionary.
I imagine one of the things they were checking him for would be like a collapsed lung.
Yeah.
Probably did a quick x-ray, but, that wouldn't necessarily explain coughing up blood.
Yeah, well, the other
So
theory,
I don't think we haven't heard, and we probably will never hear what it actually is. But it just it was giving me vibes about the Luke Musgrave injury.
Yeah. Well, the other thing for, coughing up blood could be, hitting the lungs, have a cough, maybe also bit your tongue because your head got slammed into the turf that hard. And then, blood in the mouth, you're coughing, just want to be extra careful,
I hope that was all it was. We'll see. Day to day, sounds encouraging anyway.
Yeah, that's at least encouraging. But, Dad, enough of some of the down news. Let's talk about this game, because this game otherwise was incredibly exciting. For the Packers, to come out with the victory here, 17-9, to go 9-8, to make the playoffs after you failed to make the playoffs last year is, a very exciting thing for this team. Let's start, though, with the biggest moment of this game. And we do that by ESPN win probability. We do that by, just kind of objectively what swung the win probability the most. In this game, that was the 59-yard pass and run to Jaden Reed down the left sideline in the fourth quarter that moved the Green Bay win probability from a 75% chance, a 75.2% chance to be specific, to an 86.7% chance for an increase of 11.5%. So that was the biggest play of the game. Dad, let's start talking about the offense, though. And let's start with what they're saying. And I just wanted to, we threw this in because it was a fun quote about the offense. Usually we include quotes from Green Bay players and coaches in this one. But this was just too good to pass up. Jaquan Brisker, the Bears safety after the game, was asked, about the Packers, about the Bears defensive performance after giving up, over 300 yards of passing in this game. Quote, this is a Brisker quote. Quote, I felt like we could have tightened up on the receivers a lot more than we did today. We gave them too much room, and I really have no respect for them at all, just to be honest. And then when asked why he had no respect for them at all, follow-up, quote, no one's over there. No respect. They have no stars over there. Which, amazing. Just amazing quote to drop after you've had 300 yards hung on your head. It's truly fantastic. Aaron Jones.
And I love Aaron Jones' response on Twitter.
Oh, yes.
Isn't it his job to cover them? Should have been an easy day at work, right? If we got no one over there.
That was a quote, by the way. That was what Aaron Jones responded on Twitter. I think Preston Smith also had a response on Twitter. You can go find that. I think we retweeted it. But yeah, hilarious tweet because the Packers passing game absolutely carved up the Bears in this game. And let's start with Jordan Love. Let's start with good things on offense. Just an effing masterful performance from Love. Keep in mind, with all the things that we're saying, yes, the Bears were missing Jalen Johnson in this game. He's very good corner in the league. But at the same time, they were first in EPA per play on defense over their last 7 games in their 5-2 stretch. They were first in EPA per play, first in EPA per dropback, second in dropback success rate. And we talked all week, they were 7th in weighted DVOA. They had really been playing good defense coming into this game. And Love just absolutely carved them up like it was clinical. He was 27 of 32 for 316 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just 5 incompletions on the day. 2 of those incompletions, we retweeted video. Jacob Morley on Twitter is an awesome follow. He tweeted videos of this. You could argue they were drops. They were in the receiver's hands. You could also argue they would have been very tough catches. I always have a hard time, calling something a drop when I would have been like, wow, what a catch if it had been caught. But 2 of them were arguably, I would say, his best throws of the day. in the throw to Melton, or the first one was the throw to Dobbs. He's moving right and throws back across his body left, and Dobbs almost has it and gets it punched out. That's the play that Dobbs got hurt on, we think. And then Melton, they called it a touchdown on the field, and for some reason overturned it. There were some weird things in the replay review room in this game all over the place. It was odd.
If they just applied the same standard as they did 2 minutes earlier on the DJ Moore.
What standard?
Catch.
What consistency? We didn't even get to see a replay, and we were watching on TV. But yeah, so I would say 2 of his 5 incompletions were actually 2 of his best throws on the day. And then for anyone else wondering, the other 3 incompletions were a quick out to Wicks on his second throw of the game. One, he essentially threw over Melton's head at the end of the first half with 25 seconds in the clock running. That's when they converted that. I believe that was when they converted that third down to Kraft, and he stayed in bounds. They tackled him before he got out of bounds, and so it was essentially just a throwaway. Where
he did throw it away. It's almost like a spike.
Yeah, he just threw it over Melton's head, and then the third one was a shot to the shot to Heath that low-key almost a pick, but the end of half where he threw it into the end zone.
Heath plays defensive back and pries it out of the defender's hands.
Yeah. So for those of you keeping track at home, 5 incompletions. 2 of them were his best throws, arguably his best throws of the day. 2 were just pretty much throwaways, and 1 was a pass early in the game. He only had 1 incompletion in the second half, and it was the Bo Melton, almost a touchdown. That's insane. That's an insane day. To go into some more stats, these are per NFL Fast R. In terms of quarterbacks in Week 18 who played at least 10 plays, he was 7th in the league in EPA per play, 2nd in success rate, 4th in completion percentage over expectation, 7th in EPA per dropback, 3rd in dropback success rate, and then 4th in EPA per pass attempt. A lot of those EPA numbers are actually even being pulled down by the fact that the real only one mistake he really made. I mean, you could argue the throw at the end of the first half that was almost picked was not a great decision, but it is what it is. But the real only big mistake he had was the fumble that kind of breathed some life back into the Bears. Shout out the defense for, getting a stop there and forcing a field goal. But he really shouldn't have ever had to run that because he had checked to a pass play. He was looking left and no one turned.
Three receivers over there and not a single one turned around to look back.
A free cut to the outside, which is what I think he was looking for, and he's about to throw it, and then he realizes no one's coming out of their break, and he sees all the linemen going downfield. So if everyone else was on the wrong play, you could argue maybe Love messed up the call there. Fair enough.
That quarterback down sneak.
Yeah, if 10 other guys are doing one thing, maybe. But so he's forced to run it because there would be an illegal player downfield if he were to throw it even, and so. That's his big negative play on the day, and he never really should have been in that position to begin with, honestly. Third down specifically, he was nails in this game. The Packers faced 10 third downs and converted on 7 of them. All 10 of them were Jordan Love dropbacks, despite 4 of them being 3 yards or fewer, which I think just shows, how much weight they're putting on his shoulders and how much faith they have in him with that coaching staff. On third down, Love was 7 of 8 for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. His only incompletion being the drop touchdown, quote unquote, to Melton. And the other 2 dropbacks he had on third down were a sack and then the scramble that he had. So very insanely successful on third down in this game. No one in the league with at least 5 third down the 5 third down plays, 5 third down dropbacks, that's amongst 33 different players, had a higher success rate. And despite that fumble on third down, he still had the 8th highest EPA per play on third down this week. So just a great performance from him. He was PFF's highest graded passer on the week for whatever you want to put weight-wise into that by a wide margin. The gap between him and second was as big as the gap between second and 8th. And, I know, a good amount of the better quarterbacks in the league, the counter argument is we're not playing this week because their teams had, playoffs wrapped up. But still, an incredibly dominant performance from Love Dad in a game they had to win. And a game that the numbers are insane. And honestly, he might have been even better than the numbers.
Yeah, because a lot of those throws, it didn't matter if there was pressure in his face, like the first down to Jones, maybe on the first possession. Moving right, throwing left, finding space, hitting receivers in stride. The accuracy he had today was really, really good.
It was nuts. I mean,
So maybe his best of the year of having accuracy on the move. Didn't matter if he was running right, throwing left. Didn't matter if he was off his back foot. Didn't matter if he jumped in the air. The throws are all on target, except for maybe the one to
Wicks on like the second play of the game. He missed him
the
wide.
Second play of the game.
Yeah,
but after that,
he was just on fire. I mean, I struggle to think of like what his best throw of the game was. Was it either of the ones to Melton or Dobbs that were incomplete? Was it the one to Reed and the hole shot down the left sideline? It wasn't technically the turkey hole, but it was like pretty much the turkey hole as he's drifting
I was thinking
left.
Was that to Reed? The one to Reed was the long one.
That went for like 60 yards. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite pass was the one to Melton on their drive in the second half for their second TD drive, right over Kyler Gordon's hands and in front of Terrell Smith. It's like it's on the left side.
He had another really good one to Melton that went for like 40 yards. I think at the end of the first half that would have like set them up for that field goal. The one where Melton just keeps running and running and running. Because I thought the one that you're talking about was
up the middle?
No, it was on the left hash. But then you have other plays like the one to Tucker Kraft at the end of the game. That to ice the game where he's rolling out with a guy on his heels and puts it right in Kraft's hands. You have the one to Reed on 3rd and 2 from their own 14 where he just throws. That was also at the end of the game. It was the third down before that Kraft third down where he hits that 3rd and 2 to Reed as he's streaking, across the field from left to right. I mean, there was just throw after throw after throw in this game that were just insane. He was playing out of his mind. It's probably his best performance of the year, I would say, especially considering the fact that the Bears had a pretty good pass defense coming into this game. I mean, just sensational. And the young pass catchers in this game, Dad. Jaden Reed, 4 catches for 112 yards on 4 targets, including that huge third down catch on 3rd and 2 from Green Bay Zone 14 on the final drive of the game. Just the second Packers receiver with 100 yards on the season. Amongst the Packers, he led the team in yards, air yards, yards after catch, EPA per target, and success rate. Those are per NFL Fast R. And he was second in the league in Week 18 in yards per target. He was 4th in receiving yards, and he was 9th in EPA per target. So an awesome game from Reed. And then Wicks, 6 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns on 7 targets, was the only player for Green Bay to get into the end zone in this game and led the team in receptions. The route on the first touchdown, I mean, he just had the corner completely guessing.
He put him in the blender.
Yeah, it was very, very mean. It was bullying. It was especially meaningful to him, apparently. They reported after the game that it was actually the birthday of one of his former Virginia teammates who lost their life in that tragic shooting. So he was very emotional after the game and during the game. And per Pack Daddy on Twitter, he ended up ending the regular season as PFF's 24th highest graded receiver amongst all receivers, not just, not rookies and second years. All receivers, he was their 24th highest graded receiver on the season, which is pretty crazy. And then Bo Melton, 5 catches on 7 targets for 62 yards, second on the team in yards, second on the team in air yards per NFL Fast R. I'd argue his touchdown catch was a catch. And then so that was the only incompletion when they targeted him. And he also had 2 carries for 14 yards. They're giving him design touches, which is kind of crazy for a guy who was a bit of an afterthought.
And just I'd like to tag into a couple of those. For Melton, I really liked how he's fighting for extra yards. I think on the run, looked like he was going to be stopped short and was able to push through for a couple extra yards for first down. I think he had like 2 of those where he runs through contact for extra yards for first downs. And then Wicks, this week he was 16th in the league in PFF receiving grade. And, in addition to his jukes, while he's trying to get open, he's also with the ball in his hand. He left, I think it was Eddie Jackson.
Did you see? Did you see the remix that they made of him?
No, do you know I have not. It's like one of those where he goes flying. Is the flying into space move?
Yes, they made the exact flying.
I could just see which one they would use. That they used on Jalen Ramsey when.
So funny! Yeah, when Rodgers
they did that when Rodgers scored over the pump fake. But I could see that'd be the perfect one to use. Classic.
It never doesn't make me laugh. That like any of those edits, they never fail to make me laugh. Dad, any other positives on offense? I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Do you want to talk any more about Jordan Love or any of his throws? Do you want to move on to maybe the run game because it was very impressive?
So I think I've already chimed in a little bit on what I thought of Love and Melton and Wicks that I had, but I need to do a shout out for Aaron Jones. It's his third 100-yard rushing game in a row with 111, and it was also over 5 yards per carry. And then he added 5 catches for 30 yards. It was the first time in his career with 300-yard games in a row. His only other time with 2 in a row was at the last 4 weeks of 2019, when he ended the season with 3 out of 4 over 100. He really looked fast out there, hitting the hole and going field. And they said during the broadcast that he's like the fastest of his career, or like the fastest they've ever clocked him in practice. So it's like 21 miles per hour, I think.
I had missed
something
this.
like that.
That's kind of fun. That's a fun poll.
They were talking about that at one point about how he looked faster, and they were some measured speed, which maybe was in practice. He was third in the league among all running backs in Week 18 with 7 missed tackles forced, according to PFF's grading, and had the 8th best running back receiving grade, catching all 5 of his targets.
Speaking of players fighting for extra yards, I mean,
yeah,
they had nothing, and nothing more emblematic than that 2nd and 9 run to end the game, where they had him 2 different times, and he just wanted it more.
He had a couple times where I was like, I thought he was going to lose 2 yards, and he ended up gaining like 6 on multiple occasions.
He looked like, I think a lot of them did, but he looked like he was really thinking about how last year ended, and he was not going to let it happen again, especially to the Bears. And I mean, it's a great way to bookend the year because, Week 1, dominate. It's like Aaron Jones' show versus the Bears. And then Week 18, in many ways, I mean, Jordan Love, I think, was the story of this game, but only because he played so spectacularly. Aaron Jones was excellent once again, just as good as he was Week 1.
And this week he was third in the league with 8 first downs. 8 rushing first downs, plus he had another 2 receiving first downs. And so he finished second in the whole league with first downs on the week.
And carrying the load. He was the only running back for Green Bay to get a carry in this game.
Yep. Patrick Taylor came in there for a couple of snaps of pass pro, basically.
Yeah. I don't know why they don't give Taylor the ball. I feel like he's looked fine when they've handed it off to him, when he remembers to go out of bounds. We'll talk about that later.
I guess I just feel like Jones is fresh right now, and he can handle a big workload.
I mean, and also it could be your last game of the season. Like, what are you saving him for? Like, so just go out there and get the yards.
Why send your second best running back if you can send in your best running back?
Exactly. Yeah. But no, Jones was fantastic in this game. I mean, do you have like on hand his yards after contact per attempt? Like, it's got to be insane in this one. I can talk a little bit more about some other things that were great in this game. The play calling was really good. I thought that the blocking was quite good. I thought Zach Tom pretty much handled Montez Sweat the whole game, and they did a really good job having Kraft chip for him. Tucker Kraft has become I'm not going to say elite, but like very good run blocker just in the course of a season, which is crazy to think about.
Their first possession, when he comes around and seals the edge on the outer defender,
left side, when he like gets around
the left
him.
side.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
He gets around and seals that edge up for actually it was like beautiful run blocking play he made there. Yeah, so they had Jones only for 3.82 yards after contact per attempt.
That's
not super crazy.
That's a ton, isn't 4?
It's a lot if it'd be like for the year, but yeah, on a 1 week basis, there are some other people. Like I remember looking at this. Some other people had like some crazy numbers because he didn't have any 50-yard run after breaking one tackle.
That's the thing. I think his median yards after contact per attempt is probably also very high, because I do think a lot of times those yards after contact per attempt, they're oftentimes skewed by like a couple like break a tackle.
All you need is like to break one tackle at the line of scrimmage and go and house it.
But he was getting 3 to 4 extra yards on almost every single run, which was
there are times where I was like, I see him going to the pile, and they're like, wait a minute, he came out the other side. I didn't think there's any space in there.
And we talked about, the Bears' run defense. We talked a lot about the Bears' defense during their 7-game stretch of like how well they'd been playing. Their run defense had been good all season long, regardless of whatever split you wanted to pick. So they had been a very solid run defense for a majority of the year. And Jones just took it to him. And shout out to the Packers' offensive line. I mean, we had been griping about, their run blocking for like 2 years now. And they've at least done better at it the past, 3 weeks. They've certainly ran the ball quite well. But, Dad, there were definitely some, negatives on offense. Are there any other positives you wanted to talk about before we touch on a few negatives?
I think I got all my notes in there about mostly it was about Wicks, Jones, and a few things added in about Love.
Yeah,
But
I'm just trying to
I
think
have some
about.
bad things. You have a few bad things.
Yeah, I just want to, it was such a good game. I want to just make sure that I'm exhausting all of the positives. Walker, I thought, played quite well in this game, and I didn't notice Myers, so that's a plus. Beyond that,
Yeah,
I would
you
say
mentioned the run blocking. This was their best run blocking grade of the season by PFF grade.
I mean, I believe it. It was certainly, I think, their most impressive game running the football, for sure. But some negatives in this one. The main one for me is, the execution at the end of the first half, procedurally, so many just mental mistakes. At the end of the first half, I have three things. Number one, most of the league would agree when you have 2 timeouts and the opponent is, clearly going to kick a field goal, you should probably take the timeout with Chicago running the clock. And the idea is it is better to have 150 and 145 and 1 timeout than like 115 and 2 timeouts. And the idea is the opponent will always, you hurrying up to snap will take less time than the opponent taking all the time they can to snap. Right. So, like,
if you take
yes,
your timeout,
you have one less timeout, but you are going to be faster than that snap, like that they're taking. So just take the timeout.
It's simple math. If you take a timeout when they have the ball, you're going to save 40 seconds because it's going to run the whole game clock down, and you can get a playoff in even if you take your time. Even if you take your time, like 20 seconds.
Yeah, it's just you're saving more time by taking the timeout on the opponents when the opponent has the ball. That's number one. Number two, Kraft, my guy. You have to get out of bounds there both times. The second time, obviously, is not his fault. And also, it's like you're trying to get a first down because it's 3rd and 1 and you're trying to get into field goal range. And he's fighting for that end line or fighting for that sideline. So that's not that bad. But the first time, when he just cuts it right back inside, I was like, no. What are you doing? Don't do that. And so they do that. And then 3, LaFleur. Why are we effing around trying to get an extra 4 yards and like run the clock out? When the risk is you get tackled in bounds, which happened, and they ran out of time and did not get to kick it, or you throw a pick or turn the ball over, etc. And the difference is a 40-yarder versus a 37-yarder. If that difference matters, you need a new kicker.
That was just such I was so angry at that play at the time. It was one of the few plays I was angry at during the game. And Romo was calling it before it actually happened. And I'm like, no, that's a terrible idea. Why would you do that? Because he's saying, oh, this is what they should do. No, you either throw it to the end zone, because from whatever they were, the 25-yard line, it probably would take you 7 or 8 seconds. If it's incomplete, you still got 3 seconds left.
It was the 22-yard line.
You just got to make sure you take a sack.
It was the 22-yard line because it would have been a 40-yarder. I looked at it, and so they got it to the 19 instead. And so it's like if the difference between a 40 and a 37-yarder to you is worth that risk, then you have the wrong kicker. That's all that means. And
I would have at least respected it if they went for a touchdown.
Yeah, at that point, screw it. And the thing is, if your other argument is like, oh, we didn't want to give them the clock, like any time on the clock back. If you think 5 seconds is too much for them, you have the wrong special teams coordinator or defensive coordinator. Like, it's not worth the risk. And it almost, well, not almost, but they blew that for 3 points. They took, the sack was a pretty good play by, the Bears. I think it was DeMarcus Walker beating Rasheed Walker, I believe. But, they get knocked out of field goal range there. This game, should have been 13-6 or maybe, 17-6 if they had been able to score a touchdown on that Dobbs one at half. And instead, you go up into half 1 point up with, the Bears having all that momentum because they just, pulled a fast one on you and tricked you and you didn't score any points, even though you drove it down the field. And so they're not lucky, but it's good that they kept it up in the second half and, kept the pedal to the metal and the offense kept ticking. But if it hadn't and the Bears had pulled ahead, we would have been, thinking about and just bemoaning the fact that they just gave points away 2 different times in the first half. And the second time at the end of half is the one that really sticks out. And you're really able to be like, these 3 things are all massive red flag decisions. What were we thinking here?
Yeah. I mean, that's just, you really have to stay away from bad process. And what they did at the end of half was just bad process. the missed field goal, it's like, yeah, that's just a misplay. I just messed up the play as opposed to making bad choices.
And the thing
Try
is,
to
like,
avoid making bad choices.
Not taking the timeout on Chicago, that's like, there's no pressure there. Like, you're not on a time crunch or anything. Like, you should know that that's what you should do. And then Kraft,
because they still had 2 timeouts at that point.
They had 2 timeouts. They would have had another timeout still. Kraft not running out of bounds, like, he's a rookie. It is what it is. It hurts, but he's a rookie. But Matt LaFleur, like, come on, man. Lock in. Let's lock in there. We had to win that game. We still did. But if we hadn't, there would have been a lot of questions about what happened there at the end of the first half. Any other negatives on offense, Dad?
So I had a few things. Yeah, basically the missed opportunities. Basically 2 lost field goals, a miss, and a failure to even get an attempt, and not converting the 2 of the contested catches in the end zone. What it led to was the Packers didn't score as many points as you would have expected for the amount of yardage they got. For the season, they've averaged 15 yards per point per teamrankings.com, which is right about league average, so like 15.5. And in this game, it took them 25 yards for each point because of the missed opportunities. Now, what's interesting is because 17 sounds really low, but there were so few possessions in this game. They still scored 2.42 points per drive, which would be 7th in the league this year, and is actually almost a quarter of a point more per drive over their season average. There were just so few possessions in this game, only 7 for Green Bay and 6 for Chicago. So I slipped in a little bit of positive in there. I mean, at the end of that, so they weren't very efficient with their yardage in the end because of missed opportunities. Yeah,
missed opportunities. I mean, you only go 2 for 4 in the red zone, I believe. Like, that's not great. But at the end of the day, I don't really want to end on a negative for the offense. The offense was great. I mean, you have 430 yards of offense. You have 308 yards net passing. You give up only 1 sack on the day. You also tack on another 124 yards rushing on 4.6 yards a carry. I mean, it was a stomping on offense that 17 points really does not show. Moving on to some things we were thinking about, though, or things that made us think, some things we have questions about. The one that I had for the offense was Bo Melton in this game led all wide receivers on the team in offensive snaps per PFF with 45 snaps. And was getting, design touches for him, carries. So where does he factor in on the wide receiver depth chart? We don't need to have an answer for that right now. It's just something that I'm keeping my eye on and I'm thinking about. Dad, what are you thinking about in this one? Anything make you think on offense that you're kind of just keeping an eye out for?
Well, so you wanted a little bit on a more positive. So Love was only pressured on 4 out of 30 dropbacks. And Montez Sweat, that we only had 1 pressure on the day. But in addition to that, Love had a passer rating of 118.8 when he was pressured, with 3 first downs on his 3 pass attempts. He got sacked once, and he got 3 passes off, and he was 3 for 3 for 3 first downs.
Freaking good in this game. I cannot get over how good he was in this game. He had, was it 80% like completion percentage, and the incompletions we already went over were not like, I mean, some of them could have been caught. I mean, the last drive of the game. I mean, let's just gush about Jordan Love's game. I mean, the last drive of the game. You remember the read pass I'm talking about, right? Where it's 3rd and 2. They had gone. They had the ball, at their own 5, I think, after a Jaden Reed field goal or Jaden Reed fair catch. They go run play for -2 yards or -3 yards.
-3.
And dump off to Musgrave for like 8 yards, 9 yards, something like that.
It was for 11.
Oh, okay. But it
wasn't enough for a first down.
No, to make it 3rd and 2. And then have you seen the end zone angle of this throw to Reed? Do you remember what it looks like?
I don't know if you've seen the end zone angle, but I have where he's coming to where he sees there's actually one guy clearing and then Reed comes across and he's laying it there before Reed is even coming around.
The way he torques his arm like around essentially a rusher coming into his face and just lays it perfect. And then Reed takes a shot. Shout out to Reed for holding on to that ball. Because, if they have to punt there at their own 14, I mean, Chicago's offense hadn't been doing much, but you're giving them a chance to win the game there.
You'd be giving it to him most likely at midfield.
Yeah, and then the one to Kraft as he's sprinting out right. I think Ross Uglin put this best. 3rd and 8, a first down gets you to the playoffs. And he goes and sprints away from pressure, throws across his body perfectly into Kraft's arms. I mean, it was so good. But Dad, let's move on to the defense in this game. We've talked a lot about Love. Anything else you wanted to add on the offense, though, before we move on to the defense? Any other Love throws you want to gush about? Oh, here, let's talk. We just keep talking about it. Some other throws that I thought really stood out in this game. We talked about, the Reed hole shot. We talked about the one that he layered over. You said you thought it was to Melton. I thought it was to Wicks. I could totally be wrong.
I think it's Melton, but it was, and I was checking the numbers of who he beat with it, and it was Gordon, and
we could also be thinking about different plays as well.
It could be we're talking about two different plays. I was having this discussion earlier when we were talking about the game about which play I was talking about, whether it's the same play that you were talking about.
Yeah, and then the Wicks touchdown, which you said made you nervous. I was like, wow, what a throw. The one where he hops off his back foot.
You can see it a little bit better from the end zone where you can see how
do you agree now that it was an awesome throw?
It was also an awesome route.
Yes.
By Wicks, where he gets so open when he's first releasing it. But when I first saw it, I couldn't see how far the defenders were from it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's a bunch of other ones in this game. I mean, what a fun game to watch. Honestly, the Bo Melton one,
this could go in the rewatch.
Oh, this
games to rewatch category.
This is definitely in the games to rewatch category. But Dad, we've strayed off the beaten path. We've gotten away from our numbers and our data. We've just gotten to fully emotional mode. I
only could shout out the pass blocking a little bit, where it was their second best pass blocking game of the year by PFF grade. That is
PFF grade. Okay, and it did not. Like
you know what game is behind?
So PFF pass blocking grade. I'm going to guess Bears week 1.
Yes.
I was gonna say I don't think they even touched him in the first week
but they're very close, 85.3 to 84.8.
Wow, it's a good thing they had Montez Sweat in this game. It changed everything. Everything was so different when they added Montez Sweat. But he is a good player, and it was a good addition by them. If you win,
I did. At first, I thought, maybe this is such a good idea, but they did sign him to long term. And I was like, they've completely turned their defense around after it was one of the worst in the league at the beginning of the year. Now they're actually good.
It's because the difference between
I didn't like that.
It's because the difference between having no pass rushers and having one pretty good to very good pass rusher, that the chasm between what they had and what they got was massive. But Dad, let's move on to the defense. We're already getting a little long on time, although, if you're going to go long on a podcast, might as well be the one where you make the playoffs.
After a playoff clinching win.
Yeah, and Packers, we didn't get a chance to say this, but youngest team since 78 to make the playoffs, third youngest team ever by weighted number of snaps, in terms of weighted by how much each player is contributing to the team by snap
age
number.
Time snap.
Yeah, it was the third youngest and the youngest since 1977. Youngest team in the league, cheapest offense in the league. All this without their starting left tackle. All this without Christian Watson almost the whole year, and without Aaron Jones almost the whole year. And you're dropping games to the Raiders and the Broncos and the Vikings with no Justin Jefferson in consecutive weeks with a bye week in there. And you got me on this podcast saying this is one of the worst coach teams I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the fact that they turned this around.
What was it you said after that stretch against the Broncos and the Raiders? I'm not sure.
How are we not how
are we
the
worst? Are we the worst team in the league now?
Well, my point was how many teams don't win a game in that stretch? But hey, I'm the sucker, or I'm not the sucker. I'm winning out of this one. I stay winning either way. But my point of the matter is that they turned it around. Coaching staff deserves all their flowers. This team is only one of 4 teams in the league without a Pro Bowler. The other ones are Washington, New England, and Carolina. And you can look at where they are in the standings.
Yet, probably not a single vote for LaFleur for Coach of the Year.
And I'm not even seeing
what is it? We have no good players, or we don't have a good coach.
I don't know. These doesn't make sense. And we're not going to get Executive of the Year either, apparently. Apparently, that's also not one that we're favored to get at all. I don't really understand.
Yeah, it doesn't. We couldn't have had good drafts if we're made the playoffs with a bunch of first and second year players.
The thing is, though, you do look at the numbers, and I was thinking, who would even make the Pro Bowl from this team? just because a lot of the best players have missed time or like their numbers aren't super impressive.
Right.
I think the only one that probably should have, as an alternate at least, is Jordan Love.
Is Love. Love should have made it.
Or as an alternate at least.
Because you had, Gary, very limited snap count in the beginning of the year, so he didn't rack up a lot of numbers.
Yep.
And you had...
Jones missed most of the year.
Jones missed a big chunk of the year. Watson missed... And the receivers, basically, the passes have been spread out amongst like 6 players.
Exactly.
Everybody's contributing, so nobody's racking up big stats.
Yeah, and then on defense, Jair had a down year. Bakhtiari was out. Elton, had a fine year, but if you're a left guard on like a 500 team, no one's really going to notice or care. But yeah, so I was looking at it, I was like, honestly, like, I don't know who would make the Pro Bowl besides Gary, but like he missed a good stretch. Maybe Kenny. I think Kenny's maybe the one that got, the least. Like,
I think he had a career high in sacks.
Oh goodness, we're gonna look at all of this in the offseason when we talk about it. But yeah, since we're talking about Kenny, let's talk about the defense and let's talk about the interior of this defensive line. But before we do that, some things that they're saying. Quick quote from Preston Smith. Quote: Joe B's been dialing it up. He gets a lot of hell in the media, but we've come together. We play for Joe B. That's Joe Barry. Shout out Joe Barry in this game and in the Vikings game. They had. I really liked, I think my big positive is, since we're getting into good things for the defense, is they were way more aggressive. According to PFF, they sent Quay Walker 2 times and Devondre Campbell 2 times against true pass sets. So like actually sending them as pass rushers. Walker ended up with a pressure and a sack on such plays, and Campbell had 2 pressures. That's back-to-back weeks for PFF of sending Walker multiple times as a blitzer, just on, true passing downs. They did it against Jaren Hall, and they did it against Justin Fields to great success. And this is something we talked about in the pregame, Dad. You highlighted this, but Justin Fields was the 24th ranked quarterback in the league in terms of like the difference in his rating from when he was not blitzed to when he was blitzed, and they took advantage of that. And so I would say, shout out Joe Barry, tip of the cap. We criticize him when things go poorly, like in that Carolina game. I still don't necessarily think he should be the defensive coordinator going forward next year, but these last 2 games, he's done a good job, and so we're going to credit him when he does that. I thought they contained Fields as a runner very well. Is there anything you wanted to add about that aggressive nature that they were aggressive approach they were taking on defense? Or
and they were the front was getting home a lot, or into the backfield a lot, both on pass and run plays, running a lot of stunts.
Interior D line was great.
Yeah, and I wish it's the kind of thing that you wish they would do more of in games against what you consider to be inferior opponents. Take it to them. Not just like hang back and hope they make a mistake.
Yeah, and that I think has often been. Doesn't it seem like we do better against good quarterbacks than bad ones?
We talked about this in the year. Like we're just the doppelganger imitating whoever's looking in the mirror.
I wonder if it's like a lack of blitzes that is the reason for that, because you can't really blitz the really good quarterbacks; they will just destroy you. And you can blitz the like bad ones who will just sit back there and pat the ball. And so maybe the fact that we just never blitzed was just like, maybe that was the weather vane or however you want to say it. I don't know if that's the right coin of phrase, but barometer, I guess. But beyond that though, I thought the defense played really well. Like you said, interior pass rush. Wyatt had 4 pressures and a sack on just 10 pass rush snaps. Carl Brooks had 3 pressures and a sack on just 10 pass rush snaps. Those are both per PFF. He was also, Carl Brooks, that is, the highest graded defender for PFF for the Packers on the day. Kenny, like you said, had 5 pressures and a sack. Great day from the interior pass rush. I mean, they were just getting after. I mean, the Bears, had a backup center in this game, and then their right guard got knocked out. Packers took full advantage of it, and they were even smoking their left guard, Tevin Jenkins, who's a starter as well. Justin Fields,
who was beating him?
Carl
Wyatt
Brooks.
beat him bad.
Carl Brooks beat him bad. So did Wyatt. They both beat him really bad.
Yeah.
Carl Brooks was the one. It was the last play of the game that the Bears had on offense. Carl Brooks just rips through his hands, sacks him, and the Bears never got the ball back. It was incredible. And then they contained Fields as a runner very well. He came into this game leading the league in terms of yards per game, averaging over 52 rushing yards per game. Leading the league amongst quarterbacks, that is. And then today, only 8 carries for 27 yards with a long of 7 yards. Excellent performance from all 11 guys. I thought they tackled mostly pretty well. A couple times where they didn't, but I think just overall to hold them only 9 points, there are definitely some negatives we can talk about from the defense, but I think, mostly a pretty decent day, a pretty good day.
Yeah, so I had that they only gave up 4.2 yards per play, a number that would lead the league. On the season, the Jets led the league at 4.6 yards per play.
That's a good
And the
point.
Bears came in averaging 5 yards, finished the year averaging 5 yards per play, and they just averaged 6 yards per play in their previous game. The defensive front was fantastic getting the field, backfield, run play, or pass play. They had like 10 negative plays for the Bears offense. I think like 5 sacks and 5 tackles for loss.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the interior, but the edge guys were playing the run quite well. Preston looked good.
Yes,
Barre had some good moments. Lucas Van Ness had some good moments. Sorry, I'm raining on your parade. I'm stealing your thunder
because they had their 5th best run defense grade on the year, and on the run plays, both Gary and Egbare at the edge had negative average depth of tackle, meaning their average tackle on run plays was in the Bears' backfield.
Yeah,
not very many run play tackles, but 11 of the 25 run plays.
If I can just say one thing, he did the same thing twice. I don't know why they weren't ready for it, and I don't know if maybe Fields, because it was 2 like boot, I think, options where
you mean what Gary did coming in from the offensive right,
or it was Enigbare both. Yes, where it looks like maybe Fields had the option to keep it and boot out with it if he wanted to, and he didn't either time. And Enigbare just crashes in and just rips him down in the backfield, for negative 2 yards one time and negative 1 yard once, or the other time. And I was just like, and he did actually, I think, a pretty decent job of not crashing down immediately, and at least making it so he could possibly play the keeper aspect if Fields had chosen to keep it. But yeah, no. So I thought a really nice game from Enigbare and Gary playing the run. Gary got sucked in a couple times, but it is what it is.
And then of the 25 run plays, 11 of them ended in solo tackles by the defensive front, with an average depth of tackle on those of only 1.5 yards.
I like that,
which is really nice to see.
Yeah,
and I think there's maybe just one missed tackle on those run plays.
I like
and
that.
Chicago only averaged 3 yards per carry.
I like that single, solitary tackle by a defensive lineman, because that's the D lineman getting off their block and not having to clear the way, for the linebackers, not just having to eat blocks. Like, they're getting upfield and making plays. And I think there were a couple times where they maybe got upfield a little too aggressively and got ran by, and that's happened in the past too. But I think in this game they did a really good job of hitting that happy medium.
Yeah, and so overall they defended the run. I felt like one of their best of the year. Just the way it looked, the way they were able to, and the Bears being a run-heavy team, relying on both running quarterback and run. I think their run offense has actually been quite good lately, and the D-line edge players were able to, every D-line or edge player except for Slayton and Wooden had a pressure, and Fields was pressured on 15 of his 24 dropbacks.
Oh man!
So over 50%.
Goodness!
And with Clark leading the way with 5 pressures, including a sack.
Do you think? I'm going to pop this on you. O-line playing bad? Him holding the ball too much? Or combination?
I did not feel like he was back there patting the ball that much.
Okay. I was just curious what you thought.
Just thinking how I felt at the time, that he's just back there patting the ball. I think there was some several times where the offensive line got beat pretty quickly. So is that we were so good or they were so bad? Or, little column A, little column B?
Little column A, little column B. I mean, we're playing against, their O-line isn't great to begin with, and then 2 backups along the O-line that's tough sledding for any team. There were some negatives, though, or anything else you wanted to add on the positive side. I thought Lucas Van Ness looked good. I thought Carrington Valentine should have had a pick, but, he got back and got that PBU. But no, yeah, I thought
yes, and I think somebody even made a comment on the broadcast about that's why he's on defense.
That is why he's on defense. For me, though, bad things. You mentioned, and I thought the yards per play was actually very interesting, and that was not a stat that I realized. I did think that they let him move the ball maybe a little too easily for large stretches of the game. Like we talked about how...
Oh, I have a note on this too, as well.
We talked about how few possessions there were in this game, and that was part of it was, the Packers were driving the ball pretty much at will a lot of the game. But the Bears were having a really good time driving the ball too. And I want to, be fair to the Packers defense. They were often stuck with poor field position, and we'll talk about the special teams later. And their ability to, hold down after, that fumble and keep them to a field goal, et cetera, and then, some really good field position off of kicks for the Bears. But they let them move the ball on surface. 192 total yards is awesome. But only 6 drives, and it was a really fast game. The Bears came into this game averaging around 29 yards per drive, which would rank around 22nd in the league. And in this game, they averaged 32, which doesn't feel like a lot, but that would be 12th in the league. So very far above their average. And they got to at least the Green Bay 26-yard line on 3 of their 6 drives. And the reason I said 26 is because, 25 is red zone, but 26 might as well be red zone. So I figured I'd include that too. But yeah, so they were getting deep into Green Bay territory quite a bit, which is just not quite what you want to see because it's not like the Chicago offense is particularly formidable. But hard to be too mad in a day where you only give up 9 points. But I just figured I'd add that in there because it wasn't like a phenomenal day from the defense. They had a lot of negative plays forced, which I think was that was the exciting part. Is they forced a lot of negative plays. But they did let, the Bears, do you know what the buzzword is of the fantasy season is matriculate? They let the Bears matriculate the ball down the field quite a bit.
Yeah. Are they enrolling in college? But I had kind of a similar thing that I felt like they had a slow start to each of their defensive possessions. Chicago got into Green Bay territory on all 6 of their possessions.
Yeah.
So they never had a possession where the defense just shut them down entirely. It was more like after Chicago started advancing the ball, then Green Bay would make some big plays in high leverage situations, like a sack on 3rd down or back-to-back sacks to set them up.
Not to rain on anyone's parade, but that's been the problem. That's been the defense the whole year. This is not a new thing. They will let you just move the ball, and then they rely on these big splash negative plays, and it's not sustainable. But we're not going to worry about that right now.
I like how you whispered. Audience, could you hear that he was whispering that?
It's fine. It's fine. It's only one game. It's all that matters is we made the playoffs, and we'll see what happens from here. But we made the playoffs, which is fun.
Yep. So that was what I had for my negative. Really was that. Basically, it wasn't just a slow start to the game. It was a slow start to every single possession on defense. And then they would start making plays after they advanced it like 20, 30 yards down the field or more.
Mm-hmm.
But then moving on to things that made us think.
Oh, yeah. I have a fun one. Do you have a fun one?
Well, so I said, Jair had his second best passer rating against of the season after having a week of vacation.
I really do think he was just – I don't think he was 100% for that Carolina game at all. I don't think he was really healthy enough to play. I think he just wanted to play because it was a hometown game. But I think if it was anywhere else, he would not have played that week. He needed another week or two. And I think we saw it in this. I mean, it's not the toughest competition. I mean, DJ Moore's a very good player, but I still think he clearly looked more physically ready in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, the only week where he was better in pass rating against was week 1 against Chicago. And then he had his 3rd best yards per snap on the season behind that week 1 against Chicago and the Raiders game. So by a couple of measures, this is one of his better games of the year.
No, yeah.
So maybe this will be a sign of good things for the playoffs. He just has to hold up for the next 4 weeks of playoffs.
Yeah, and hold up through 4 weeks. Win the Super Bowl, not just make it. Clearly, that is the goal now, and the expectation is they're just going to steam through. The thing that made me think, though, just, a question. Is this more aggressive play style on defense, where we talked about back-to-back weeks of blitzing Quay Walker multiple times just on regular passing downs? Is it a product of playing Jaren Hall and Justin Fields? Or do you think they're going to be more aggressive going forward? Just is that here to stay? I'm kind of hoping it's the second. I'm hoping that they will stay more aggressive. Obviously not blitz with reckless abandon against quarterbacks that are going to kill you. I don't think this game plan, I don't think would work against Dak Prescott, for instance. But I do think, Quay Walker, some of his best traits, really pop off the screen when he is asked to be closer to the line of scrimmage and be coming downhill. And I think he works really well as a blitzer. And I think in order to get the most out of him, they should utilize him more like that. And they've done it the last 2 weeks, which has been nice. You know what Andy Herman's theory is? He was talking about this on Pack-A-Day. Do you see this?
I think I missed this.
He is wondering if the more aggressive nature on defense is just LaFleur, and that Matt LaFleur is just going way more hands-on defense and is practically calling the defense and is like, hey, we got to be more, or maybe not practically calling the defense. Maybe that's a step too far. I don't want to put words in Andy Herman's mouth, but just he was hypothesizing whether or not, maybe a lot of that more aggressive style of play is a mandate from LaFleur, which, these are just things to think about. But let's move on, Dad. Let's wrap things up. We're getting a little long. Special teams. Woof. Not great. Not great at all. The field goal operation, Carlson missed that 41-yarder. I didn't think the snap was very good either. The whole operation was bad. Carlson, the kick coverage, Chicago, had essentially 4 kick returns. They started at the 31-yard line, the 34-yard line, the 22-yard line, and the 32-yard line. So excellent field position on almost all of those. And on the one that got to the 34-yard line, we only kicked it to the 10-yard line. Why?
Yeah,
Why did we gave that can't have been on purpose, right?
I don't know what happened to that one. Yeah, either. It looked weird. And they gave up 28 yards per return.
Yeah.
Which isn't good either. And
it's not like Felix Jones is like, he's good. He's a fine kick returner. But it's not Devin Hester back there. Like, it's not, yeah, that was bad. Like we said, that missed field goal. I do like that Carlson, bounces back when he misses them and he's able to make the next one. But what is it? 5 straight games with a missed kick? That's not tenable. I'm pretty sure it's something like that. I heard on another podcast. I can't remember which one, but I think it's like 4 or 5 straight with a missed kick, and you just can't live like that. And I don't think it's all on him. There've been bad snaps in there by long snapper Matt Orzek, who was paid to come in here, paid good money, and I don't think he's been better than. He's been better than Hunter Bradley, but you're paying for a bigger jump than that. So I don't really know. Shout out Whelan for holding well. He didn't have to punt in this game. Whelan, you get a pass. You're cool. Jaden Reed,
no punts.
No punt. Jaden Reed, you fielded all your punts. But no, yeah, the special teams is a disaster. The only thing saving, I wonder if the defense starts playing well enough that everyone starts looking at Rich Bisaccia like, so you're the bad coordinator. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on the special teams. Dad, did you have anything else you wanted to add there? Should we wrap things up?
That was pretty much it. Things just it was just some bad execution. And Chicago was looking out like doinking one through the
I can't believe
through the uprights.
Doinked one through the uprights. This game had like everything that you in the first half. I was like, this is how you lose a stupid game like this. Like, you miss a 41-yarder, they bank a kick in, you don't get a kick off at the end of the half. Like, I was like, this is how you. And then in the second, I was like, you fumble when you're clearly driving. It's only a 1-score game. Like, what are we doing? But no, yeah,
I
it was
so much wanted to get that up to 2 scores. I was so tired of being up by only a touchdown and a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, no, but thankfully everyone stepped up there at the end, and it all worked out. And the Packers are in the playoffs.
You know how much I loved the fact that we didn't get
the ball back. Thank goodness.
The Bears never got the ball back. Oh, that was like heaven.
Yes, I was honestly still like, even after Kraft had that catch, I was like, 30 seconds.
They can still get it with 30 seconds.
It's not nothing.
You're right. I wasn't, when you said like they clinched it with that Kraft first, that's like, I didn't really feel completely like they had until
Jones literally ran.
Until Jones' first down, and then they could just kneel it out.
It was actually over. Yeah, no, I agree. But a really fun game as we wrap up here. Packers making the playoffs. Dad, who is your player of the game in this one?
It's got to be Jordan Love.
Jordan Love.
It's got to be Jordan Love.
Other
the guy is looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now.
The only other person it could be, honorable mention Aaron Jones. Great game from him as well.
Honorable mention Aaron Jones.
Yeah, but no, it's got to be Jordan Love. But Dad, what a fun freaking game we got to watch. Like, what a time. Packers making the playoffs at 9-8. They are your 7th seed. They will be traveling to Dallas at 4:30 Eastern time on Sunday. Very exciting game coming up in Dallas, in Jerry World. We will be coming to you with a pregame for that later in this week. We'll be giving you the scouting report on the Cowboys, telling you everything you need to know for that game. If you like what you heard here today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when we have new episodes out, stats that we find when we're researching for these episodes, articles we find interesting by other content creators, and videos we find interesting, pieces of Packers news like roster moves and injury reports. One-stop shopping for everything Titletown. So come give us a follow there. Once again, at FatherSonPacker. And then subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We even put all our episodes out on YouTube as well if you want to check them out there. If you subscribe to us there, it would really help our numbers. So yeah, thanks so much for listening. Dad, anything else you want to add on? Packers make the playoffs.
Packers make the playoffs. We get to play at
Free football.
Jerry World again. We get to play more football. At another playoff game at Jerry World. The last time that happened, it went well.
It did go. It went quite well. But anyway, thank you again so much for listening. We'll be here later this week giving you that pregame and scouting report. And until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.